Speaker.
I call the member for Bundaberg.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, this is a very unique opportunity to speak about a matter that is ingrained within our history, but not always at the forefront of our minds in the present, and as we move towards the future. And I do thank the member for Moreni for bringing this topic to, we call it debate, but I think tonight it's more of a conversation. I think that's probably a better term to put to this, and it's important that we do have these conversations. And I know that the member for Moreni and I, we've had a few conversations back when we were allowed in the annex, and then we spoke, and he shared some of his family lineage and I guess some of the differences there in terms of South Sea Islanders within the Mackay region, and then of course in the Bundaberg region and all across the wide bay. So I do thank you, member for Moreni, through the Deputy Speaker for bringing an important conversation forward. And also note that even though us as members of Parliament are in a privileged position, that privilege isn't lost on you. In fact, you're using that privilege to speak about those who have a history of having their privileges taken away. So that is a very important element. In saying that, I won't be supporting the motion. I'll be supporting the amendment to the motion, and I'll outline a little bit as we move forward. But I will also echo the words of the Minister in saying that Australian South Sea Islander communities across Queensland hold a unique place in the establishment of our history and our cultural and economic fabric as well, and that there are approximately 6,800 people with Australian South Sea Islander heritage in Queensland. But of course, as we do so that they create a unique element to our cultural and economic fabric, we can't sugarcoat the past, and we can't hide away from our past. We know that over 50,000 people, predominantly men, came from some 80 Pacific islands, primarily Vanuatu and the Solomon Islands, and the majority were kidnapped. They were blackbirded or deceived into coming. On 7th of September 2000, Premier Peter Beattie, with Opposition Leader Rob Borbidge and Speaker Ray Hollis, jointly they signed the Queensland Government Recognition Statement, which recognises Australian South Sea Islanders as a distinct cultural group. It is sometimes said that of those who reflect upon our history as a nation and our history as a state in terms of history post-European settlement, that if you look negatively on the actions of some European settlers, that you have a black armband view of history. But I don't believe that is so, because you cannot deny the past and have a strong modern Australia. You cannot deny the past and have a strong Australia of the future. And I appreciate that the member for Moreni may well accept that's the intent behind him bringing this motion today, is about not having a black armband view of the past, but acknowledging the past so that we can build a stronger modern Australia for a brighter future Australia. And I know that in the Wide Bay region, of course, South Sea Islander communities were strong. We know that the horrendous practice of blackbirding did occur, and they called it indentured labour, but it's not indentured labour if you're asking someone to sign a contract who doesn't understand what they're signing, who doesn't speak the language in which that contract is written. We know that blackbirding, even though it might have had a contract attached to it, should rightly be called slavery. And we know that the actions that occurred to those South Sea Islanders were the actions put upon slaves right across the British Empire. And it was reflected here in Queensland as well. And what's stunning to me in my role former when I was a teacher, and I was teaching in Maryborough, and Maryborough is a wonderful community, it's a strong community. But there were a lot of young people who didn't know the history of Australian South Sea Islanders in the Maryborough community, across Hervey Bay, and also in Bundaberg as well. And when you go to the Wide Bay, you go into the cemeteries, and when I took my school students there, I said to them, I want you to go find the graves of South Sea Islanders. And they couldn't find them, because whilst the Europeans had the tombstones, the graves of our South Sea Islanders are unmarked. There's no trace of their name, no trace of their history, their heritage, their culture, just a lot number. And I I appreciate that my 5 minutes is up. I wish I could speak about this longer. I will be accepting the amendments today.